It's fine, sweetie.
Hello, guys. Welcome to our podcast. It's called It's Fine, Sweetie. With me and you and you. I'm Dree. That's Clarence. And that's Dan Dan. Looking cute, Dan Dan. I guess this week I kind of want to talk about like challenging narratives. I think, like, given all that's happening in the news and everything, and there's this conversation about like media literacy and reading comprehension, which I think is really interesting. Um, and I don't know why I picked it up, but for some reason, I just decided to read the book You, which is the book um, that turned into a TV show starring on Netflix, starring Penn Badgley, which is like wildly successful. What I think is so interesting about that is like Penn plays this character Joe. And if you haven't watched the show, like Joe is deeply problematic to say the least, and we know this like from Joe. Um, but everybody has
In the book, you know it from Joe.
spoiler. You know it. You know it in the show too, don't you?
I
You
don't
don't feel
think
like
so.
you do?
I don't think so.
Um,
I'm gonna
I
have to
feel
go back.
like,
figured out pretty
yeah, I haven't
fast.
watched its first season in a while, so
First episode, I think you like don't really understand that like they're not in a relationship.
isn't it like at the end
Or some
of the first episode where you're like,
yeah,
oh,
like she like is his girlfriend, and then
I
at the
need to
end,
go back
I
and watch
feel
it
like at
again
the
then,
end of
because
the first, you can watch it too because I can't remember, but I feel like at the end of the first episode, you're like, oh,
okay,
okay.
but even like in episode one, you figure out that he's a bad guy. In the book, a lot more meat of her coming in and them initially quote unquote flirting. Um, but what I think is interesting because Penn has said it. He's like, I don't know, like women are so attracted to this Joe character. He's like, you're not supposed to be. Like it's supposed to be creepy. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the way that he's like portraying that character. But there's something that people are just like really drawn to. And I don't know. And then like reading the book and then like going back and just reading what people said about the books, like looking on Reddit or looking at reviews. I don't, are we fucked up as a people? Like, I get like people are just like into it because he's so good, and like maybe women are just like starved for somebody to be like that into them, and that even like that stalker thing kind of seems attractive, and like then we get into the whole like dark romance thing, and there's like a lot of um books where like women get stalked a little bit and like people think it's hot, and I understand that it's fiction and it's a safe place to like explore those themes, and hopefully people understand in real life that that's not that hot, but like they exist. And i don't I don't I guess I'm just having like trouble because like even reading it, it's like you can, he's an unreliable narrator, but also he couldn't have been completely lying about everything, and some of the shit that like Beck does sound like shit that people would do in real life. And it's like there was this question of, does she know that she's being stalked and just kind of like it, like she just likes playing the game, you know? Um, I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's just like reading it in this day and time, and like with everything that's happening regarding like how people consume literature is incredibly interesting.
Yeah.
I don't really have a point to make in regards to that point, but I would like to say that I always find it extremely troubling when any type of art tries to depict that, because I feel like it's a dangerous narrative. I don't want a stalker to stalk somebody, or a rape or a graper to grape somebody, or a
You
murderer
don't want somebody to get like a bad idea from the book.
and be like, oh, she liked it. You know what I mean? Or there's like, it's just not acceptable behavior. Um, I know that it's a facet of life, and I know that you kind of you don't have to talk about it, but I know that it comes up. But um, I'm never really comfortable with that narrative. Like it just
I mean, to be like completely, they never say it in the book. It's just like I saw people speculating about that in like Reddit threads about the book. You know what I mean? So again, like I'm not. It goes back to that reading comprehension. Like I don't know if they picked up on that or where they picked up on that, or if it's just like inherent or whatever. You see what I'm saying? Like,
but you've read it, so can you see where they're coming from? You see why they feel that way? Or you think that they're projecting?
I think they're projecting.
Okay, so that's frightening, right? But I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's frightening because if people are fantasizing about that, I mean, I get it. Fantasies are supposed to be just fantasies, right? But like more and more in this day and age, people are trying to make fantasies a reality. And so
Yeah, and like, is that because like we're so trapped by like your jobs and your obligations that like you're seeking like heightened
I I
like
think the opposite. I think
experiences?
that like fantasies used to just be fantasies, right? But like in this day and age, we have the resources, we have the tech. I think that it's just instant gratification age.
Interesting. So anyway, that's what.
And I guess I'm not following.
I
What
just
do
feel
we
like
mean?
to expound on that, I just feel like in this day and age, more so than ever any other time in history, people can um, subscribe to whatever they want and make fantasy a reality. And I think that can be troubling, right? I don't think that every fantasy should be acted out. And the fact that some people are on Reddit and advocating that, like, the victim of Joe liked it. I'm just afraid of where
Was
that
that what they
goes.
were saying? Was it like that she liked it or that she knew he was stalking her?
That
There
she
was
knew. Oh, go ahead.
more vindictive, and like this is another thing because again, like I very much read the reviews and see how people are reacting to it because I want to know like what the market is. But this is something that also comes up a lot, like when I read romantic books at all. If there is a female character, and there, I mean, obviously there always is in a cishet romance. When there's a female character who happens to be difficult for some reason, like had a bad childhood or whatever, or is just kind of catty, like women go so hard on the character. Like they'll rate the book, they'll be like, "This was a great book. I love the guy, but I hate the girl. Why was she so mean to him?" And they'll rate it like 1 star, and I'm like, it's just such an interesting phenomenon that I can't wrap my head around or um really understand. But it was the same thing with like when they were saying like Beck knew what he was doing and she liked it. It didn't feel, it felt mean, it felt vindictive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that has less to do with like, I mean, for in my opinion, I guess it seems like it has less to do with like folks feeling like a fantasy reality and people like being abused, and more like folks don't identify abuse as abuse. And I
Mm-hmm.
think maybe I've told that story before of like being in an elevator with this football player, and I was dating a different football player at one point. And this football player called his girlfriend and was like, "What are you doing? Where are you at? And who's going to be there?" And he was like really concerned. And I guess at that point, I felt like my football player wasn't like as open with the world that like we were together. And then it felt to me like that was a more caring relationship than the one I
Mm.
was. And then as an adult, I realized that that was like super controlling and super like toxic. But as a young person, like I don't know how old I was, um, I was like, why don't you care where I'm at or what I'm doing? Like, why don't you care? And I think that we're somewhat taught. I mean, I think that the difference between maybe like now and then again is like as women are shifting more and more into like more independent roles and like more into their own life, instead of like being almost bred to be breeders, unfortunately, then we're shifting out of like this male gaze of like wanting to be the object of someone's affection or attention or obsession. Like it almost feeds into like you're worthy if you do have someone who gives a shit about you enough to like know anything about you. And I think that is probably been true for a long time, despite like even without the
I can,
technology.
yeah, I can see that.
I don't know what that's called, but I mean, I think that there's like this piece where we're, I guess, like taught that we should feel special.
I mean, but
Or
everybody does. Like, there's that quote that's like, to be known is to be loved. And like, I do want you to pay attention and notice that, what my favorite flower is and bring it to me sometimes. But I don't want you to
yeah,
be so attentive that, like,
You smother
where
me.
yeah.
I mean, like that's
yeah,
like baby reindeer. You know what I mean? Like he, even from like the male perspective, like there's that I'm getting attention. I don't normally get attention. I like it, but then also too, like Clarice said, not knowing where that line is and not knowing when to say, hey, like this is too much, right?
yeah. 'Cause I don't think most of us get that. Like, I I think even when we talk about like celebrities, like I watched, I don't know what it's called, but the documentary about Sarah Tegan and Sarah, the Canadian indie rock band.
Hmm.
And I feel like again, just listening to Tegan, recount this story of her youth, it was like, well, she wanted to make music as a profession. She wanted to be, a musician. And then as people started liking their work, she felt this almost obligation to make herself accessible to her fans because it's like, wow, you actually care about like what I'm doing, what I'm writing. Like, I can't believe that people care. And so she was like really accessible. And because she was so accessible, someone was able to catfish her. I mean, catfish as her.
Hmm.
Oh,
So they hacked into her email. They figured out all her contacts and stuff. They were able to start responding to fans and carrying on
holy
relationships
shit.
with fans. And fans believed that it was her because she had previously been so accessible. So like she starts dating like people in her real life and they're like really offended because they're like, we have a relationship. Like, what the fuck are you doing? So she has like all these people that were like seriously offended, like, thinking that her management team was trying to cover it up. And I don't know. I just was thinking that like our worthiness plays into, not that I'm trying to blame Tegan at all, obviously, but just that like there's a piece of us that's like, wow, why would anybody even give a fuck
Yeah.
about me, that like allow us to be victimized.
Or,
And
yeah. And then I think all of that is like boundaries. Like, nobody ever teaches you what a boundary is and how to hold it. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, and I think that by and large we have that really fucked up in general. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think there's no class on like, oh hey, you're mega famous, here's what you should do now. I mean, or and even like then like for young women when you're like growing up, I mean, I think I told one of you that I was looking at my daughter's Roblox messages, and this person was sending her a message and telling her she was beautiful and that she was their good girlfriend or good girl. I don't know, it was gross. But she was like, "Oh, thank you. My mom says I can't date though, whatever." It was just like, again, like I feel like this is a person who has been really cared for, really like doted over, like really told that she is beautiful and smart and all of these things. And in my opinion, even at school, most of the time seems really confident. But even then, when someone gives her these random compliments, she's like inclined to.
It's politeness. I
Yeah.
think that has engendered even like our political climate. There's like that thing about the paradox of tolerance, where
Mm.
if you tolerate intolerance, eventually the entire environment's intolerant. And I really feel like that's happening because and even with like the Make America Healthy Again stuff, like all vaccines are
That.
bad. So we're just RFK being in the HHS,
Oh, with him.
wanting to do away with the FDA because they're poisoning the food and there's too many GMOs. Like we let people talk about it and we're just like, I don't want to deal with it. So we're just like, ugh, you know what I mean? And we're just like, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Okay. And we're polite about it because we don't want to argue. And that's all well and good until the movement is taken off so much that we are now like wondering if our food's going to be safe. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like I feel like I've said this before. Like there'd be less scams if people got scammed more. There'd be less bullshit if people got punched in the face more. Like I feel like we're too nice in general.
Yeah.
And like we prioritize, especially as women, you get socialized. Even if you don't get socialized into it at home, like I do feel like you guys do a very good job. Your kid still has to interact with kids who aren't having that same socialization. Like they are being socialized to be polite above all else. And I think that's dangerous for women. You know what I mean? Like that's what gets you kidnapped and thrown into a well where you have to put the lotion on your skin. It's a little dark.
It's certainly dark. I mean, I think that there is no way you would not be dark though, right? Like it's unfortunately this like, you know, I don't know, analysis of the times. Like, and I think that too, like I'm remembering this TikTok where I thought someone was following me, and then I was like, I'm a 40-year-old woman, like who the fuck would be following me? And then I was like had to check myself, like women get followed all the time. Like it's not about like whether or not you look like Tyra Banks or, you know, whatever walking down the street. It's more about like opportunity and power.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that so many of us are like, why would they be stalking me? Like, you know, like I'm sure she
Yeah, like
talked.
we don't want to be
Yeah.
ridiculous or full of ourselves either. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Even if she had an inclination, you would be like, I'm just tripping, right? Like, you know, because you kind of call your friends and like say, hey, it kind of seemed weird that he knew like this about me. I don't remember telling him that. People are like, oh, it's probably on your social media. It was probably something you know, wrote. You know, you can't be guaranteed that you didn't say it, you know? They
mm-hmm.
just like dismiss like concerns like that. Because yeah, just like when I say I don't want my daughter to do XYZ and people are like, statistically, you know, if she's gonna get kidnapped, it's gonna be by someone she knows. Well, like,
God, that sounds like a good horror book. Like where you just like something is obviously happening and then everybody gaslights you out of believing it.
it happens in like almost every horror story.
Yeah.
Like probably it's just true crime. You know, like I listened to this show as I was, you know, again, I don't know what they said that is like disassociating by listening to true crime stuff. But I listened to this show and the guy he's calling 911 to say, hey, someone was hiding behind my first he calls two times. The first time he calls, he's like, my garage door randomly went up in the middle of the night and I'm here with my kids and we're all scared. And he calls the police and then, you know, they don't find anything or whatever. And then the second time he's like, yo, someone was hiding behind my air conditioner and I saw them and now I'm scared, but you can hear him in the background, like talking to his son about how he forgot to pack his lunch. So it's like clearly he's not taking it as seriously as he probably should. And then the next week, obviously, it's a true crime, so he gets shot and killed. But like, you know, it's like his wife had been setting him up, you know, trying to murderize
Yeah.
him. But you know, it was just it's just like a lot of us don't like go to the worst case scenario. We're just like, damn, that's crazy. What does this guy want? And then you just move on.
I think we should at least go to the medium case scenario.
Yeah,
Like,
like what
just
if my
take
wife
some
is trying to cheat me?
precautions.
What
Yeah.
if my wife is sleeping with her boss and wants to like fucking murderize me?
There is actually somebody why they're in the bush. You just have to maybe understand that if somebody is in the bush, they might want to murderize you and like be more careful.
Yeah. Just like, oh shit, there's a person like hiding in my bush. More than likely that's not good.
Yeah, like that's not something people normally do.
Yeah.
Like,
But then
um,
like what do you do? Like in this case, like, obviously someone is feeding. I think too, I think it's also a big jump to like think it's someone close to you that's like feeding information to someone else.
yeah.
So like in his case, like they're at these places that he's normally at the times he's there because his wife is telling them when to be there. So it's like he drops off my son at this time. He does this. So like what do? You like get a different routine, but then if you got a different routine, more than likely, what the heck is happening with the dogs? Who's doing
Probably
it?
Amazon is probably
Oh,
Amazon
that's
is
yours.
looking for that.
Wait, somebody's house is going insane with dogs. But more than likely, you're not going to assume that like your wife is giving them like your location.
So do
So
you feel like it's better to overreact as opposed to underreact?
I really don't know. That's why I feel like, in a lot of cases, you just don't know. It's just hard to predict.
I feel like you should medium react. Like if I thought that somebody was following me, I absolutely would take a longer route and just see if somebody was behind me. Like I would just be late for a lot of things. I even like the suspicion that somebody was like knew when I was dropping my kid off. We'd have a fun day that day and we'd go to the zoo and we would just see. You know what I mean? And if I don't know, like I,
Well, I don't
I'm
think
just
he
kind
knew
of a
the
bitch that
guy was
way.
following him to his kid's school. Like first the guy, I mean, obviously the dude was trying to do it at his house. And then that didn't work. So they ended up at the kid's school, but I don't think he followed him because he didn't have to.
Oh,
Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
he was gonna
He
be
had his agenda, yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
He was definitely just gonna get murderized. That's really
yeah.
fucked up, lady.
So it's like
Yeah.
it's unfortunate. It's like, well, if the closer someone is to you, like it's easier for them to like set up your murder because anyway, that's really dark. But um I feel like the challenge is that we are all like creatures of habit and like in a lot of cases, that's what, you know,
That's what gets you.
yeah, you have to because like that's how life, happens. But I was followed one time, I told you about that, where like someone was like saying that I hit their car and I was going to pick up I think it's just Lillian at the time. And I was going to pick her up and this car was like making all the turns I was making. And so then I pulled over really quick because I was like, are they following me? And I just like scooched over and then they stopped like because they
They're
weren't
definitely
expecting.
following you.
And then I was like, are you following me? And they were like, yeah, you hit my car. And I was like, you were behind me. And they were like, yeah, you rolled into my car. I was like, sounds like your problem because that's not a thing. And then they were like, yeah, you didn't hear that? And I was like, I don't know. If I did, then, sorry, I don't fucking stop for randos, especially in
Yeah.
the middle of whatever. So, like, keep going. You have my license plate. If you feel like I did something wrong, report it to the DMV. And then
See,
they,
that's
like, followed me some more, but I could have gotten murderized.
you could have. You should have called the non-emergency number.
I did call, but you know what is fucked up?
They
Is
take
it
forever.
wouldn't go through. It wouldn't go through.
What's the pew pew laws in California?
I don't know, but I didn't have one at the time, so it wouldn't have mattered. I was like, let me research that as I'm running from this dude. So I just drove to like the police station and they finally just drove away. But I was like, but if I hit your car and I drive to the fucking police station, then like, don't you
You
want to
would
go in?
think, right?
Right.
Yeah, like, don't you want to like go talk to them and be like, "Hey, this bitch ran into me."
Was it a
And
male or a female?
it was a dude,
Oh
Yeah,
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 and
you
they were
did
stuck
get
in
it.
the car.
yeah.
Yeah,
You
he
didn't
was banking on you being, oh my God, I'm so
let me
sorry.
get
Let me see.
out. Yeah, here's my
Yeah.
insurance.
I was like, I'm sure, but like, you catch somebody on the right day. I was like, I backed into you, and they were like, yeah. I was like, that's not a thing. Get the fuck out of my face. Mm-mm. You're a liar. And then I couldn't get through to, but you could text the school. So I was like calling 911, but I text the school, and I just was like, I'm going to be late. And like, luckily, thank goodness you can text the school, because that's like one of those things where you're like, what do I do? I'm supposed to get my kid. I'm already late. Yeah. Anyway, it's always stuff is stuff is interesting. Like,
It is.
I do think that it's also interesting that like when people get followed, they think they're going to get trafficked. I'm like, I don't think so. I think they're just going to regular murder you.
Just super
Sign
regular
me up.
murder.
Yeah, sign
Like
me up.
all
Right.
day.
I'll take the 9 to 5 murder. I'm okay with that.
Well, like,
Yeah.
they're probably not going to traffic you. They're probably just going to regular murder you. So
Here's my
I mean,
wallet. Take my life.
Yeah, like the conspiracies are like people don't understand how much work it is to be
I
in a
gotta have a
conspiracy.
connect. I gotta get you out of
Yeah.
the country. Like there's
yeah.
airfare, there's ship fare. You got time for that.
I mean, or do you just like traffic someone across state lines, But they're like, there's things that like make you undesirable for trafficking, which is like
Having a
tattoos
family, people knowing where you are,
and stuff too.
having a job.
Which is why you
Yeah.
don't randomly kidnap somebody and traffic them, I would imagine.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah, that
think
seems
so.
like a lot of hassle.
I
Yeah.
do think, there's like lots of stuff out there that like just happens, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know.
I
It's
think people
just,
think it's like gonna be like Taken. Like
yeah.
you'll be like in a dressing room and then the next thing you know you're in Europe in a bidding war.
Yeah.
Like,
And
I
really
don't know.
probably more like those shows where they like promise you like some fun, fancy
Yeah, it's
job.
way easier just to get you to traffic yourself. Like they
Yeah.
convince you you've won a vacation or something.
Yeah, and they're like, you tell people like, I'm gonna go to this really cool place, and they're like, bring your passport and your fucking license and all your
Yeah,
shit. You're like,
yeah.
great, okay, I can do that. And then you get there and they're like, all right,
This
you're
isn't
never
a
going.
Surprise!
cruise.
You're trafficked.
Yeah, like if you, I don't know when it was, if I was still in Oklahoma or what, but there was like a documentary on how they get young girls trafficked, and it was mostly like young girls recruiting other
Instagram.
young girls from school. Yeah, from school, Instagram, whatever. And so, like, that's more than likely how it's going to happen, not like some guy at Target following you to your car. I think they're probably just going to rob you.
So
I was. Go ahead.
what? I was just gonna say moral of the story. It sounds like having low self esteem is dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, I think most of us, I mean, I think even when you watch scary movies, like people are trying to like talk themselves out of like, this is not happening. But I think that happens to most of us, right? Like, when you wake, I don't know if you've done that. When you wake up in the middle of the night, there's like a shadow in the corner, and you're like,
That's more just like wishful thinking. Like I'm just gonna go back to bed. Like fuck this. I gotta work in 4 hours. You're gonna do what you're
that's
gonna do.
Yeah, to
no.
me, if there is a shadow man,
I'm not gonna be awake for it. Why would
Mine
I
is
want
you.
to watch
shadow
this?
man, I'm just like, that's
This is out
range,
of my
shadow man.
warehouse. I can't fight Shadow Man. Listen, I'm gonna go back to sleep, Shadow Man. And you do
That's
what you
more
gotta do, buddy.
than I guess.
I guess I go to work.
Yeah, like,
You're
all
like,
right.
hey, look, I was asleep before this. Like, if you wanted to murderize me, shadow man, you could have. So I'm just gonna assume your job is to stand in the corner and be shadow man, and I'm gonna take my ass back to sleep. You do you, I'll do me.
But it's like more than likely his job is like he doesn't want to like just murder you in your sleep.
He wants to intimidate you.
Yeah, he needs the
The
interaction.
energy. Yeah, no, I'm not giving it to you.
Yeah,
Fuck
like
off.
whatever show Cynthia Reville was in, where he just fed off.
Outsider, I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
That is the worst Stephen King novel
Girl game?
ever. It freaks
It's
me
called
the fuck out.
Outsider. I think Outsider, right? Like,
The Outsider.
yeah, where he feeds off the grief of the families.
Oh yeah, The Outsider. Yeah, yeah, that was fucked up.
It was
I
really.
hate
I mean,
that
but
one. That
she
one is the
played that
scariest
role
to me.
so good, and that's why I was like, maybe she's not like a terrible person. She's just a little, different.
Yeah, just a little on the spectrum.
Yeah, just a little touch on the spectrum, little baby.
But I
Uh,
think that in order to like be a good actress, like you have to be a little bit like in order to be able to slip into other people, you
yeah,
have to be a
I
little
guess
weird.
so. Unless you're just a nepo baby. That made me think of Blake Lively because she was like, I don't really feel like I'm in character until I do XYZ, unless I can control the wardrobe. Remember they were like talking about her and the way she was talking about acting. But I think that I think there's probably a touch of spectronism for a lot of people where they're like, okay, I have to like really understand where this person's coming from and empathize with them and like really embody the role. Yeah. But I think she's brilliant.
Cynthia.
Yeah, but I also think Doja Cat is brilliant. So,
Doja Cat, that is what's so annoying about Doja Cat because it's banger after banger, it's bar after bar. She hates herself so much that she makes me feel bad for liking it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. She's an interesting bird. I mean, I don't know. I think she's like she's really talented, obviously. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but I want to be able to rock out or like just like enjoy the song, but every time I do, I just think about her masturbating for racists and I'm like, I just I just want to be like, bitch, I said what I said.
Go ahead and enjoy it. Like we shouldn't care
But my
nor
brain, but my brain is like, remember that time.
tell your brain to fuck off.
yeah, you tell your brain to fuck off. I think that's what like I don't know. I didn't deep dive into this, but they were like when Kendrick was fighting to keep R. Kelly's music on Spotify or something, and he was like, "When does the censorship stop?" And I was like, "That's true because it's like everybody, there's all these people doing fucked up shit." And it's like, so how do we decide?
Well, I don't know. Doesn't that require that we all like I don't know. Like I just find it interesting that like we all do fucked up shit. And then it's not until you're under the scope of fame or attention that we want to make people pariah. And
I don't
like,
think that that's true. I think that we make people pariahs in our everyday lives. Like there are people that get completely ostracized out of a group without ever really getting to explain themselves and not for like something super heinous, just
for being a
because.
hoe or
Right.
for, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would think about like in Oklahoma. I was trying to explain this to mom again. I was like, I could probably do a whole lot of social research on all these different things, but I'm like, I don't have a name for it. But like, men who would like be out in the streets, like dogging it out, like new girl, blah, blah, like all these
That's what
things.
that
And
looks like. Yeah.
they'd be like, ooh, yeah, I fuck this bitch and I fuck that bitch, whatever. And then like, they're like, oh, hey, have you thought about dating this girl? And they're like, she was a fucking hoe in high school. And it turns out she like slept with 3 dudes. It's
Right.
like not together. You know what I mean? But it's like, they're like, oh, she was getting around. And you're like,
Yeah.
you've slept with like all of Oklahoma City.
Don't worry
They
about that. Don't worry about that. Man,
yeah,
mind your business.
nah. She
Yeah,
Nah.
can't.
don't look over here.
She's spoiled, for life because of
Yeah.
like high school or whatever. And it was like there's just this double standard of like where we, think women should be. I don't know, I'm
Is that
pure.
the patriarchy? Is that indoctrination?
Yeah, I mean it's like why people cannot stand Meg the Stallion. I mean, in my opinion, because like even like in her documentary when she was talking, she's like, "Why do people hate me? All I do is be drinking and fucking." And I was like, "That's why they hate you because they're like, bitch, no, we said no to that. You cannot be drinking and fucking. You
But
Yes.
gotta."
if she came out in full like garb, like covered head to toe, then they would be like, "Damn, I'm trying to see what's under that." that
Why are
I
you
don't
shit.
such a
want her to
prude?
be as
Yeah.
successful as she is, first of all. Like, probably, who's gonna buy her music? They're like,
But it's
I
just
don't know.
like how they sexualize the Lily, the AT&T lady.
The who?
Lily, the AT&T
The
lady.
the AT&T lady, the little short
Yeah,
lady. What?
Or
the
like
short hair one.
Flo?
No, that's progressive. AT&T lady, short hair, white lady.
I didn't know they were out here doing that to her.
I mean, when the internet found out that she had some chesticles, man, they
But that's the thing too. Like, I was just I was just listening to a TikTok and they were like, do y'all know why Billie Eilish dresses like that? Like, she doesn't want people looking at her body. And there's all these edits because I am on Billie Eilish TikTok. You get a bunch of edits of people just like, she's at this
The
racetrack
one
or
time
something.
she wore a shirt.
Yeah, she wore
Yeah.
like a thing and she's like jumping and her boobs are just like going up and down and people have like slow mode it and like, it was like so
zoomed in. And
feeding into the girls, and I was like, it's just, but to me, like, I'm sure she's comfortable or whatever, but like, it also does make you sad that it's like whatever expression of her identity that, she may want to is like influenced by this like sexualization as well. It's
Which
just
just
so
brings
weird.
me back to like boundaries. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
well, it's
Like
hard to and be famous.
It's hard to what?
I said it's hard to have boundaries and be famous, right? Because I mean,
Yeah.
like, I just saw Denzel Washington go to a premiere and like people were being disrespectful, and he was like, "You don't know me." And now, there are some calls to cancel Denzel because you're not
Oh,
nice to
really?
the paparazzi. Like, it's hard to be in the public eye and set boundaries. And even if you're not in the public eye, if you set boundaries, you're considered a bitch or an asshole.
Yeah. I was thinking about
but
that, especially for Black women, because there's another creator who was like, so Kamala Harris, they were like, why isn't she out here? Like, why didn't she cry? Why didn't she say anything? Why didn't she do this? Like, she just said that we lost our democracy. We've lost all our rights. She's been like fear mongering for all this time. Why is she over here smiling? And then on the other end, Cynthia Erivo, they're like, every interview, this bitch is crying. This bitch is,
Right.
whatever. And they're like, there's no right way to be a Black woman in America. Like, we can't win for losing. Like,
No.
Beyonce doesn't say enough. Beyonce said too much. No one gives a fuck what Beyonce thinks.
Why is
You know,
Beyonce doing fucking country? Who does she think she is?
yeah, like all of those things. And so I think that, it is a challenge. You like, I was thinking about that because I was like, all the feedback that I've gotten over the years about like, doing this or doing that. And it was like, and my therapist was like, sometimes
Fuck
you
them.
can't fit. Like it was like on Friday, I just decided, I was like, I went into a meeting and I was like, I'm just going to say it. Hey, why'd you do that? And then they were like, oh, and they were pissed at me for the meeting, but I was like, I feel like I feel like I'm going to say what I want to.
That's kind of
And
where I'm in my life too. It's just like, fuck it.
because like ultimately, like you're going to be like, oh, you're a fucking bitch one way or another. Might as
right,
well.
so I mean it's well be an effective bitch.
Yeah.
That's the approach I take.
Yeah, might as well ask the questions I want answered. Like, fuck it.
Yeah. Like, hey, bro, what the fuck? And then they'd
I
be
mean,
like,
either way, somebody's gonna be mad at you, right? So, like, just live the life that you want to live. Ultimately.
yeah.
So, cheers to Meg the Stallion.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I feel because I was just like, I understand where she's coming from but also like being from Texas, which, and we're from Oklahoma, I feel like we should understand that whole thing of like,
Being
you know,
Black in the South.
being Black, being a woman. Because I'm like, I feel like if any woman, even in, Oklahoma, wanted to explore her sexual anything, then it would be like, oh,
I feel like
she's damaged.
Texas has got one over on us, though. Like, yeah, there'd be some sects of Texas that would ostracize you, but I feel like Texas is pretty good about
Like they have
supporting.
like Austin. They
They're a
still,
little bit bigger in terms of like than cosmopolitan, I think.
yeah, you're not gonna like, because I feel like if you dated somebody from Midwest City, And
People
you
in
didn't know.
Edmond know about that shit. Yeah, people in
Yeah.
Guthrie will
Like, oh,
know.
I
Yeah.
know about her.
So I gotta go 100 miles out of the city, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even then, they're like, "Oh, you know my cousin."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. It's just, it's an interesting thing. Just like watching people. But anyway, I'm started listening to Pio Ra- Defectors. How do you
Oh,
say her name?
Paola Ramos, Defectors.
Yeah, Paolo
It
Ramos.
is really hard to say Paola because
Paola.
it's a lot of vowels.
Yeah,
It's Paula.
she's hot. But
She is hot, right? Like I don't want to be like
I don't want to objectify her.
There's the
serious
sexualization.
woman. She's a
But
serious woman.
damn,
She's hot. She,
Smart, sexy.
what a smoke show!
And also, this is a really important topic. I'm glad that.
she's
Anyway,
breaking down like critical analysis, and I'm like
You're like,
just staring at her in the eyes. I'm like,
ah. Yeah,
did you
you
want to say
write those notes, baby.
that? Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it's a good book so far. I mean, she doesn't narrate it, but it's still pretty good. It's yeah, it's interesting, but it also led me down this path of part of. I think we talked about this before too, like part of my dissertation and the push and pull of migration and how some folks, come here and then think that everybody should assimilate because it's such a great country with so much promise, and then other folks are like, especially if they've been pulled here like against their will, then they're like, fuck this country and everything they stand for, and we should change it to like make it look like the America we want. And so there's like this fight in that ideology. But anyway, so far it's really interesting.
I just don't understand how anybody could ever assimilate or why they would ever want to. It just screams cowardice to me.
Yeah, but
I
you
think
remember,
that's because you're black. It's
and so
because like your experience with this country has never been a comfortable one. So you're like, why would you ever give up who you are for these people? Because like that's not
You see how they treat
yeah.
people. Like,
But I feel like that's exactly the conversation that we're trying to have. We're like, we treat me, so I can see how they treat you, and I can see how they're talking out of two sides of their face because I have that experience, and nothing can take that experience away from me. Like I've watched it happen, like, and I've analyzed the situations that I was in, and like fucked up shit. But like people have that or want so badly to somebody else or to get to a certain level like they yeah but
yeah,
the reason that you're just like I can't do that is because you know too much.
yeah, I think that like when you think about, even I don't know if you had friends that were their parents were immigrants, but they wouldn't let them learn their native language.
Yeah,
Like as we were growing up, it's like there's this real need to like be one of the good ones. Like I'm here, but I'm not gonna like make things more difficult for you. Like I'm assimilating, I'm learning English, I'm
I'm
respecting.
applying in advance.
Yeah, but even when you do legal immigration, a lot of that is like is assimilation. Like they have to recite the national anthem and they have
right.
to like all these things that like are kind of patriotism and nationalism. It's like that's what they're teaching as they like immigrate legally into the country.
And
And so
I mean, yeah, do what you got to do, but like, don't drink the Kool-Aid.
but they can't help it. Like they're radicalized in this way where they don't like have an identity. They don't want to be seen as a person who
Is
is
that
coming.
tied in with the? Is that tied in with leaving my life and coming and starting a new one? So I'm just gonna create this whole new persona. I'm not gonna say my
They
name is Jean
want
Jean. My name is Catherine now. Like,
feeling like if you can again prove that you're like one of the good ones, then you will be treated you're having more access to the American dream.
It's belief in a meritocracy.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
I have merit.
the
Like,
house
there are
manifest.
these. Yeah, it's like I have merit, and if one of those things that I have to earn my merit in is
By selling
patriotism,
out.
then I'm gonna go balls to the wall on that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like there's
So
like that. There's like this belief that like, well, and like that she talks about like DACA recipients feeling like migrants are taking away from their, like, the focus being on them,
promise. Right.
like get legal status, because now people are focusing on migrants. It's like there's like, what about me? And then so that's like pushing them to the far right. There's like people who like honestly think that like a lot of folks that come into the country illegally are, committing crimes, and therefore like there needs to be more attention paid to that crime that they're breaking, but also just like, I guess, feeling like if they can, you know, be seen as like on the white folks side, that they,
Separate themselves.
yeah,
Differentiate. Right.
yeah,
To me, like, I don't. Just so I like, in my mind, that feels like when you watch the news and there's this crime, and you're like, please don't let them be black. Please don't let them be black. Please don't let them be black. And like, we're like, okay, now I have to take responsibility for this person because they're in our community. Like, now I have to go out in the world and deal with that. They're like, it's like we have that reaction where they have the reaction of, I wish that person didn't exist
yeah.
because they just made it. Like, we have the reaction of, okay, we need to go in our communities and we need to talk to our people and get them to stop doing stupid shit like this. And they
Yeah.
have the reaction of, those people shouldn't exist.
They shouldn't
Never
be
been
here.
again.
Like,
Yeah.
why do they even, why, like, so the Democrats who are like being humane and letting them in are the problem because they're like too lenient, so yeah. I mean, I think that we don't have that same reaction because obviously like most of us were born here, like it's not like the folks that we're like, oh fuck, it's not like they were from some other country, but it's like most of us were born here. So it's like, we're not like, oh, this is why Democrats are bad because they let us in. It's more like, God dang it, where's his parents? So
Yeah.
um anyway, like I said, it's interesting. I haven't finished it, but so far it's been an interesting read or listen. What are you listening to this week, Clarence? Or reading?
My My Heart is a Chainsaw by, what's his name, Stephen Graham Jones?
Yeah. How far are you into it?
I don't know, like 4 or 5 hours.
Oh, so you've made it pretty far. What are your thoughts? I'm so curious.
I don't know. We've not really gotten to the killing yet. Um,
How do you
I
feel
think
about the
it's
pace?
I think it's cool. I like the way that he sets it up. It's about like Jade, and she's a horror junkie, and murders start happening in her town. And I think it's an interesting perspective, right? Because she's excited about it because she's not really in a good place in her life and has nothing really to look forward to. And this is like exciting to her. So I think it's an interesting perspective. Like, I think it would make a good movie from that perspective. That's something that you've not seen in the horror genre. Um, and she even like kind of, there's some meta commentary in the book about how she knows she's not going to be the final girl, but she's kind of identified who the final girl is, and the town is going through transition, and she's just excited for the murders. So it's interesting to see somebody kind of fangirl over a murderer or a
Yeah.
ghost. We're not really
But
sure.
also, she tried to tell people that it was happening. Have you made it that far? Or she
I
like
think
told the
she
sheriff?
just talked to like the sheriff,
Yeah. Like, they
and
don't
she's
believe
just
her.
graduated. Yeah. So like, so the same thing, right? Like, people gonna gaslight you when you try to do this shit. I do, but I just, more than anything, I find it interesting that she's like really psyched about this. I think a normal person would be maybe a little excited, but also scared, and she seems to not have like any fear towards the situation at all. And maybe that's just because she feels that she's so insignificant that she's not in danger, right? Or maybe she just didn't give a shit.
I can't wait for you to get further in the book.
Is
I
this
just I
part of the
wanted to.
trilogy?
Yeah, that's the first one in the trilogy.
Okay. So I like it. I like Stephen Graham Jones.
So you
The
did read it, or
pace.
you didn't read it, Dree?
I haven't. I don't think I've finished one. Like I have like a handful of
So does it
chapters
just get
left.
really gruesome or something? Because you were like,
Yeah,
"Oh shit!" last week. It just
yeah,
gets real. Okay.
yeah. And it just gets to the point where I'm just like, what is this real? Like, what is happening? And I just had to take a break. Um, and I was just remarking on how like he does that whole mind fuck thing really well because he does it in They Only Go to Indians too. Um, so I'm interested to see what happens when you get further into it.
I'll keep pushing along. Oh, and then I finished The Penguin. Did anybody watch The Penguin?
I am watching it. I'm not caught up. I
The last
fucking
episode.
love Milani.
Oh yeah. Oh. Did you know that she was the first wife in The Wolf of Wall Street?
I know her from me and William have this pact where we like if we're gonna watch a movie, like our tastes aren't the same, so we have to agree on something that we think is gonna be bad. So we agreed on one night, like Palm City or Lost at the Palms or something, but it stars Andy Samberg and Christina Maloney, but you don't know that it's her. And so it's like supposed to be like this time travel movie, and you're like, it's like Groundhog Day, and you're like, okay, it's gonna be bad. So we watch it. It is fucking brilliant. She is brilliant in it, and I was like, who is this bitch? I'll watch everything that she's in. And so I watched that, and then I watched the HBO series You, and again, she's brilliant. But then like this is just like the perfect vehicle for her. Like she is soft and like and vulnerable, but also like a ruthless fucking bitch. Amazing, amazing. She's amazing.
How did you say her name?
Is it Christina Maloney?
Oh, okay.
Meliani?
Kristen Milioti or
Yeah.
something. Okay.
Are you looking at her IMDb? What was it called? Like
Yeah, Palm
Palm,
Springs. I watched that.
Palm Springs. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And are you watching anything you want to share? Or
Me? No, I didn't get to watch a lot of TV this week. I
or
was sick.
Are you okay?
I had a really bad ear infection. I can't get this ear to drain, which I guess has been going on for a while because I couldn't get it to drain when I was out there. Um, so they put me on like some really, really strong antibiotics, and it's just been kicking my ass.
sorry.
But
Okay.
I hope you recover soon.
thank
Do
you.
you want to sign us off?
Sure. All right, guys. Well, it's been fun chatting with you. I love you. This has been. It's fine, sweetie. It's a podcast starring me and you and you. And bye, y'all.
Bye.
Okay, bye.